Good morning, everybody. My name is Ali Board, and welcome to one of my live broadcasts. Now, we've got lots of audiences, hopefully, in the room today. So you might be watching this live, and you might be watching it via catch-up. Today's broadcast is going live in all sorts of places today. So normally I just broadcast my Technique Tuesday, because that's what it is today, on the Learning to Paint Facebook page. But today, this morning, I'm actually going across more platforms than that. I am live on my Alison Seaboard Facebook page, as well as the Learning to Paint Facebook page, and I'm live on the All Aboard Artist page today. Why am I doing that? I am doing that to encourage all of you to join my Facebook Learning to Paint community. And it's a very lovely place too. What it is a private group. Now, I know that Facebook has lots of kind of terms and it all gets very confusing, and I don't make it any easier because I call things similar names. But what I'm going to try and do before I get into my demonstration this morning is iron all of that out so that you can understand it better, and then you can join the Learning to Paint group, and hopefully you can be part of that fantastic community that's really supportive. People share their highs and their lows and their techniques and their materials and all sorts of things. But before I do that, there is one very important thing I have to do, and that's to say hello to the people who have taken the time and trouble to log in to the virtual demonstration. Now, if you are commenting on some of the other platforms, I might not be able to see your comments, so I apologise for that. I will go back afterwards and comment if I think I have missed anything, but I will do my very best to see the most comments that I possibly can. So Anne B gets the award of the day for being the first to comment. We always hand out a very virtual, non-existent award for this, so Anne B gets it today. Who else have we got? We've got Martina in the room. We've got Anne, Wendy, Ali D, and Ali D is alluding to the fact that one of my dogs is very poorly at the moment. He is on the mend, but it's a very slow process at the moment and just makes me worried sick. So thank you for all your good wishes. Joy is saying that it's a beautiful sunny day to lift the spirits. Yes, it absolutely is, Joy. Patricia, good morning. Mr. Templeman is in the room. Film editor extraordinaire. Good morning, Gary. Lovely to have you here. Sam, good morning. Mary, Joe, Sandra, Linda P, Kathy, Vera, Jane, Barbara, Fran, gosh, you're all in fine form today. Sheena, who else have we got? Sandy, Jan, Thea, Jane. Oh, Jane's on the Isle of Man. Oh, how exciting. I've got a friend staying on the Isle of Man at the moment. Simone, Ruth and Joe, thank you very much for taking the time and trouble to tune in. I really do appreciate it. I honestly do. It makes a huge difference to me having your support and you following me. Now, before I get into the demonstration, I know that you really, really want to get into that demonstration, but I want to just iron out some of those social media issues, some of the website issues to explain the difference. So the first thing, let me take you over. I've just got to click the right button, otherwise I will be in trouble. The first thing to iron out is this is the website. This is www.learningtopaint.co.uk. That is where you go to find everything about what I do in terms of my teaching. As you can see on there, there's lots of things that you can interact with. This is the place where we kind of put Technique Tuesday. So if you miss any of them, there you go, look. You can already see what today's demonstration is all about. The concert needs a bird. That's what we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But in terms of my classes, if you fancy joining the All Aboard Artists, in terms of inspiration, all the information about what I teach and how I teach it is available on there. So that's www.learningtopaint.co.uk. Now, just in case you get a little bit confused, there is also a page on Facebook called Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard. This isn't the website, this is the social media platform. Now, as you can see there, if I just waggle my cursor, you can't see my cursor, but hopefully you can see those lines popping up on there. Just underneath there, it says it's a private group. What does that mean? That means that if you'd like to see everything that goes on, and look at that, There's all sorts of things being shared on there today. Isn't that exciting? All sorts of people getting involved and sharing their beautiful artwork with you all. You just need to join, and there's a button there. You see, I've already joined. Funny that, isn't it? Because it's like I'm host it. And answer a couple of questions so that we, and I say we because I have a fabulous admin team, which is Kath and Dee, we just need to know that you are genuine when you join. So I know that the website and the Facebook page have similar names, but one is a place where you go to book for things, and you kind of go and you find stuff, all of that kind of thing. The Facebook page is much more about kind of interaction. That is much more about chatting to other people who are members of the group, a bit like a coffee morning. That's why we do it. So that is the website, learningtopaint.co.uk, and that is the Facebook group, Learning to Paint with Alison C. Board. And I hope that helps. So like I said, we're kind of broadcasting across all sorts of, where am I going with this? Let's find the front on camera. There you all are. Like I said, today I'm broadcasting across all sorts of platforms because I would very much like you to be part of that social media group. I go live as many Tuesdays as I possibly can on that, and I tend to pop up in other places too. If you have any questions about any of that, then either drop me a line on social media or send me an email, ali@learningtopaint.co.uk. and I will try to answer them better. But one thing you can do is pop over to the website, and there's a page on there called FAQs, Frequently Asked Questions, and it's got lots of information on there all about this kind of stuff, so do pop over. Now, whilst I've been yakking about all those sorts of things, what else have we got? Who else has popped up in the room? There's lots of you here this morning. Thank you very much for tuning in. Wynne is saying good morning. Now, Marion is saying that she had a poorly dog and is wishing mine a speedy recovery. Oh, Marion, big hug to you as well. I know how scary it is when one of your pets is poorly. It's rubbish, isn't it? And Val is in the morning. Good morning. And Pam is in the room too. Thank you very much, like I said, to all of you for taking the time and trouble to tune in. So let's catch you up, just in case you're just here for the demonstration, and you might be watching this on catch up too. Now, what I have in the room as well is the lovely Rachel, and Rachel's just happened to pop up at the absolute opportune moment, because this is a project inspired by my joy of Rachel and my favourite band, which is Elbow. And when I was following them around the country while they were on tour and singing away at the top of my voice and standing at the barrier and waving my hands and doing all those things, I was very inspired to create a painting. Now, if you want to watch all of the catch-up sessions, they are there on the blog. So you go back to that website, www.learningtopaint.co.uk, and you find the Technique Tuesday blog, and you'll be able to watch it all. It's all archived there. In fact, you might be watching it there already. And so what I'm going to do, if you want to learn more about it, you need to get over to the blog. But let's get to that overhead camera so that you can see my demonstration. And you might notice that it's got something else added to it. Let's give you a very quick rundown on what we did. Morning, Brenda. Morning, Lizzie. Morning, Pippa. So we decided on a canvas. We kind of decided arbitrarily that we were going to work in, I decided arbitrarily that we were going to work in acrylics. We added textures. Morning, Anita. We added a few found objects. We had a broken mirror ball that we put back onto the canvas. We added some texture, then we added a scumbled background. We also added some collage material, that's the word I'm looking for, of a Tuesday morning. And we were looking at the inclusion of text, both handwritten and stamped, which you've got a bit down here. If you want to see any of that, you need to go back over to the blog. I will show you where to go and find it at the end of this broadcast so that you can catch up. And I was saying, wasn't I, last week, that I had a bit of an epiphany with it, that I kind of suddenly knew where it was I was going to go with it. And this is my epiphany. All of this started because of a found poem where I took the words out of a much more formal poem and I cherry picked my way through them. And so it was called A Concert of Birds. And when I was having a look at it, I suddenly went, oh, do you know what? It needs a bird. Now, if you want to know why this bird, and if you want to know the background behind it, you're going to have to go to the blog and read all about it. I'm not going to get into that now. What I want to get to is how I am going to paint this. But let me share one thing with you first. I decided I want a corvid of some description. Not a COVID, a corvid. And so I couldn't decide whether I wanted a raven or a crow or any of those kind of things. But what I did find on the fabulous photo reference website Unsplash was this incredible photograph by an Indian photographer called Kasturi Roy. Now, actually, this photograph was taken in the UK, but the Kasturi had taken this really, really beautiful photograph, and huge thanks to her for allowing me to use it. If you want to go and find it, you can go and find it too on Unsplash. And what I've done is that I've drawn it out freehand. Now, I've drawn it very rough. I'm not entirely sure that my proportions are quite right at the moment, just because I wanted it to be very free and very loose. I've sort of got an idea in my head of how I want to paint this, which is always very dangerous, isn't it? Because I know that if I have too much of an idea in my head, then I might be a little bit disappointed. But it's there, it's drawn, we'll crack on with it, we'll see what can happen with it, all right? So I've got that there. Let me just take you through the materials that I am going to be using today. I'm going to be using a tear-off palette. So this is my Frisk tear-off palette. If you want the link to some of the materials that I am using today, then you need to go to the website. I'll show you where that is later on. Somebody remind me at the end of today's demonstration of where you can find these things. So I've got my tear-off palette. Have a look at previous demonstrations as to why I use a tear-off palette. So I've got that. I have got my SAA oil and acrylic brushes. I'm using 3, or I'm pretty sure I'm going to use 3 today. I am using a round brush. So I've got this kind of very fine, this is a size 0 round brush. They've got long handles because for oil and acrylic painting, you sometimes want a little bit more distance away from your canvas. And then I've got 2 flat brushes as well. I've got a size 6 and I've got a size 12. These are actually, these and the filberts, the ones with the rounded ends, are actually my favourite kind of oil and acrylic painting brushes. They're lovely and soft. They're what's called interlocked fibres. So they've got a lovely spring to them. Look at that. And I am horrible to them, which means that they survive me sticking them in water and, you know, bending them backwards and doing all sorts of things. So those are my 3 brushes. I've got a little bit of kitchen roll here. Then I've got the star of the show, which are my acrylic paints. And these are the Daler-Rowney System 3 acrylic paints. This is my acrylic paint of choice. You might have different ones. You might have a different brand. You might have different colours. It really doesn't matter. These are the ones I'm using today. I've got a bit of a selection because I don't actually know what I'm going to be using. And there is no way in a million years I'm going to be able to get all of these in my hand. Perhaps I can. Perhaps I can. Right, what have I got? I have got silver. I have got buff titanium. I've got zinc mixing white. I've got titanium white. Running out of room is what I've got. I have got velvet purple. I mean, shocking, right? And I've got Prussian blue. And I've, oh dear, they're all falling over. And I've got copper and I've got Mars black. I don't know if I'm going to be using all of them, some of them, one of them, but I've got them all here ready to go. And I'm running out of room on my desk. Now, the other thing that I've got is this stuff. This is a slow drying gel specifically for acrylics. This is the SAA's version, but lots of companies make this. Winsor & Newton is another really good one, Golden, and what this does is it slows down the drying time. Why do I need that? I need that because I want to ever so slightly mess around with this. I want to mess around with blending, fuzzing out the edges, and I want to buy myself a little bit of time. So I'm going to add a slow drying gel to my colours, and then I should be able to work back into them without them drying on me. It's not the end of the world if it dries. I just thought it was a good opportunity to show you how something like this works. If you want the links to this, the Frisk Tear Off palette, the De La Rowney System 3 acrylics, and the brushes, all of the links can be found on the blog for you to have a look at. Don't go yet. Don't disappear on me yet. Let me do a little bit of demonstrating for you first. So let's get these brushes out of the way. Let's get this bit of kitchen roll out of the way. Got my little non-slip mat over on my drawing board. Also got a bit of sunshine coming in, but that will disappear in a minute. Let's pop that to one side. Let's squeeze out some of this slow drying gel onto my palette, which of course it's not going to do because I'm live. There we go. Now you don't want a huge amount of this. You certainly don't want more than 1 to 1. Okay, so don't have more gel than acrylic paint. All you want to do is to add it to your colour. Now, how am I going to paint this? Let's show you that fabulous photo again. What I'm going to do with this is I want it to be kind of impressionistic. I want it to be loose. I don't want it to have too much detail, although it will require some detail in terms of an eye and probably some definition on the beak, all of that kind of thing. But I want it to be impressionistic. If I go too tight, what it will end up looking like my bird is actually stuck on the surface, okay? And I sort of want it to appear and disappear on the surface. So I'm going to start off very, very loose with my brush strokes, very loose with my colour, going to kind of smush it all around. That's the official term for it, smushing. I'm going to use some of the background colours in there too to get a little bit of lost and found going on. But we will, we'll see how it goes, shall we? We'll lay some colour down this week, and then next week we will kind of pick up where we left off, and we'll see how long it takes us. So where am I going to start? Definitely going to start with some Prussian Blue. I love this blue. It's like a really kind of rich, dark, navy, very delicious blue. One of my favourites, it has to be said. Now, because I am doing some sort of crow-raven hybrid, I need some black. That's going to go down. Now, I want to throw some copper in there. Why do I want to throw some copper in there? I want to throw some copper in there because orange is a complementary pairing to some of the blues that I've got going on in here. And I want it to have a bit of bling. There we go. So we've got a bit of that copper going on. And the other thing that I'm going to mix in, I'm going to start using some of that buff titanium, which I used in the background as well, to try to get it emerging and disappearing. So just to kind of recap, because I know there's a couple of questions coming in on the live chat. Gary, thank you very much for answering. Yes, it is a slow drying medium. And Rachel, they're not a lyric, unfortunately, because I can't use lyrics due to copyright. They are words from a found poem called A Concert of Birds. And you know better than anybody pretty much in the room the significance of that to me. Right, let's start with a nice wide brush. So this is my oil and acrylic flat brush. This is the size 12. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this damp. I'm not going to wet it. Okay, it's not going to be dripping with water. We're not in watercolour terms at the moment. All I'm trying to do is to make it wet enough that it will pick up the colour and move it around. And I'm going to take a little bit of that slow drying gel. hoping, yes, you can see my palette in the camera. Mix it in with a little bit of that Prussian Blue. Now I need to have up in front of me my bird. I should be able to see everything that I have to see and the bird all in my shot at the same time. Now let's start adding a little bit of colour. That's a bit too much gel. You can tell it's too much gel because it's too thin. There we go. That's better. I'm going to add this very loosely. So we're sort of blocking in, and I'm going to I'm using my brush to simulate some of those feather shapes. I'm also trying to get it worked into the texture too. So we'll start pulling that up and around. I don't want to lose the kind of feathered quality. Let's go up and over those mirror tiles. That would be good. Where else do I want a bit of that blue? Let's get a bit of that blue down on the undercarriage of the bird and maybe down on the legs too. No point me starting to worry about the detail of this, because that is something for the end game. That's not something for right now. And what I'm hoping is if I start to use my brush worked into some of that background, it will start to sort of fuzz and do things. Let's start adding some black into that. So I haven't bothered washing my brush out. I'm picking up a little bit of gel. I've got a bit of blue on my brush. I've got a bit of black, all of those kind of things. And let's start adding some of that colour in too. So we'll get that on. You can see that the gel is working because it's given it this really delicious kind of glossy appearance. And it means that when I hit that blue, I can start to blend it straight away. Let's get that black in down here. Now, again, like I said, I'm not overly concerned at the moment about the detail. I'm just after that sort of sense of bird. Is that a thing? Essence of bird, that's what we're after. And getting that in. And of course, because this is acrylic, don't forget that if I make a gigantic stuffer of it, then I can just go back in and I can paint over the top, alter it and rescue it for another day. So using some directional mark making, very important to get the shape of the feathers, to get them blending in together. And actually at this point in the game, you can fill it in really quite quickly. Let's get, you can see how that blends. Look at that. I love this slow drying medium. It works a treat in helping to blend or scumble or apply the layers together. Now, one of the things that you might notice is how differently the colour is kind of being accepted over the different textures that we have laid down in the past, which might not be interesting to you, but I find particularly interesting. Now, let's get in and up and around this eye. I might start working in a smaller brush in a minute, but for the time being, it's all good. Right, where are we going down here? I've got some decisions to make. That was what that noise was, just in case you weren't clear. And the decisions I've got to make are, when do I start trying to fuzz it into the background? Because, like I said, I don't want it to look stuck on. So let's fill it in a little bit more. I mean, he looks like he's on stilts at the moment, but that's all right. Let's get this, we'll sort of get the tail in, we've got a wing coming down here, get it scumbled in. Now let's start adding a bit of copper into that, just to kind of start to understand where some of the highlights are, to introduce a different colour. I know you've got a bit of a shine on it because of the lights that we've got up here in the studio, but hopefully you can see it starting to emerge. And what I get is a kind of nice glossy brown out of that too. Starting to take a bit of shape now. I do need to switch to my smaller brush because I'm starting to get a little bit ham-fisted with it. Let's get that bit of kitchen roll. So I've wet that brush. So this is the size 6 version. I need to get a bit of that slow drying medium, the gel in, and we can start to get a little bit fussier around the face. Having a look at my photograph. I know you can't see my photograph necessarily. I did consider putting it in shot. I might put it in shot for next week, just because there was too much going on the surface. I didn't want to make it all fussy with a photograph as well. So we'll get that in. Now this starts to become much grayer down the beak, so I might leave that alone for the time being. And let's just crack on with it, shall we? Let's start to get some greys introduced. So I've mixed a little bit of that buff titanium in with all the other things that are on my brush currently. So we've got a little bit of the Mars Black, a little bit of the Prussian Blue, but it's going to come to pass that eventually I need to wash my brush out, and I think that moment has come. Now it looks cartoon-like at the moment, I understand that. I'm going to do something else to it in just a second. All I'm after this week is to block it in, so I'm washing both of those brushes out. Now I'm going to start to work in with some of that buff titanium, a thin version of that buff titanium, to fuzz out some of these edges a bit more. Now it's going to be hard to do because this is a dark colour, but what I can do is take the excess off my brush and start to blend out those edges so we get this kind of sense of we're not really sure where the bird stops and the background starts, and that's what I am after. There you can see, look, that gel coming into play now because I'm able to smudge out those edges a little bit more. I can blend that back into my background if I want to. Now down here it's much paler and much brighter. I used that velvet purple as well. I knew I was going to need all these colours. So we've got that, a bit of zinc mixing white as well, I think, over here. Now let's pick up some of that colour. We can start working that into the black so we get a nice kind of fuzzy edge on it. Let's pick up a bit of that buff titanium too. And I want this sense of where does that bird start? I want it emerging. So I don't want to be, let's pick up a little bit of gel. I don't want to be too implicit with it. I don't want it to be too solid, if that makes sense. So let's go back in. Let's do a little bit of scumbling around these edges. It would have probably been easier to have done this in oil paint, then I could have had all the time in the world. But hey, I didn't. I'm doing it in acrylic. Now, this is the kind of look that I'm after. Much softer, much more lost and found. You will hear artists talk about that sense of lost and found an awful lot. And it's because we don't want things to be over described. I don't want it to look like the most perfectly painted bird. It's going to take me a while to achieve it, and you guys are going to have to be with me and along for the ride, but we will get there. All I'm after at the moment now, answers on a postcard. If you are in the room, if you're live in the virtual room across any platform at the moment, tell me if you think whether I should paint over that mirror tile or not. I've got them kind of clipping the top of the bird's head. I want to know whether I should paint over that. Answers on a postcard, please. Now, this is not nearly strong enough down here. I've realised looking at my photograph, we need a much stronger, lower carriage on this bird. It comes down much further. There we go, that's better. And I realise he's got way too short a tail at the moment. So people are saying, yes, paint over the mirror tile. Let's just have a look at that photo again. Let's see how far that tail goes. Goes quite a lot further. I've made it slightly chicken-like. I can't imagine why, can you? So I need to be bolder and stronger with those tail feathers coming off this way. And Pam is saying looks like a metal hip. Yes, everyone is saying paint over it. So there it goes. There we go. What I can do is if I decide that I want to see it again, I can always sand it back. That's a thing. Let's get in with some highlights while this is still kind of drying and we're getting to the good bit. Let's get some highlights in over that wing. Lots of people saying paint over it. Let's get that kind of fuzzing. Not very happy with his legs, has to be said, but then I think that's because I haven't painted them in properly. Not very happy with his beak either, but I think that's because I haven't done a lot of detail. Let's switch to a smaller brush. That would be good, Ali, wouldn't it? He kind of looks a little bit like his own puppet at the moment, but that's all right. So many things to do to this yet. So many things yet to achieve. So we're going to block that in. Definitely needs to have some of that paler blue up over the top of the head and getting a highlight in here. And what I can do, where I've got that kind of bluey grey up in the corner, let's fuzz out the head a little bit over the top of those mirror tiles so that it's again a little bit more lost and found and not quite so implicit. That's better. Now this worries me. This I like. This worries me greatly. It's too strong. So what I need to do is I need to take some of that violet and some of the, what's it called? Buff titanium. That's the word I'm struggling for. Need to wash my brush out. Need to wash my brush out because I'm making everything very muddy. Let's start getting some colour in and around, and let's start getting fingers involved, because there's nothing like, if you want something smudged, actually physically smudging it. What I do need is a lilac. So I've got a little bit of that velvet purple and not nearly enough of that white. Instead of the zinc mixing white, let's go for the titanium white, because that is a much stronger white. Just in case you don't have any experience of two different whites, you get titanium white and you get zinc mixing white, and they kind of do as they describe. The zinc mixing white is for creating paler versions of things, and the titanium white is a really good white on its own and creates pastel versions of things. Just in case you're a bit confused over that. I have used some water in there to blend out that colour. This I'm much happier with now, kind of fuzzier. That's what I kind of had in my head. I think I'm being just a little bit too tight and demonstrative with it, but it's getting there. It's really getting there now. And I definitely need some bluer tones coming down that tail. I'm going to stick a bit of the gel in there so they get time to work on it. I need smoother brush strokes, I think, just to kind of get it filled in. That's better. And then down here, if I do a little bit of smudging and scumbling and pushing it into the canvas a little bit more, then hopefully what I'll get is it kind of appearing and disappearing into the background, because these are the same colours that I used when we did that background technique in the first place. Now, Heather has made an excellent point. Thank you very much, Heather. This is what Learning to Paint community is all about. Heather has put, I remember the difference as Titan being strong and would overshadow the other colours. What a brilliant way of remembering it, Heather. Thank you very much for sharing. Now a little face has popped up with Mobile Technique Tuesday. That would be Mum. Morning, Mum. She's obviously out and about on her travels this morning, but is tuning in via some sort of device in the car, which no doubt she's either off playing, or my dad is driving, or something else. So this is looking better. That's a bit, it's all gone a bit funny over there. Let's add some purple back into it to reclaim some of that. We've got that bee going on there too, which I might do something else with later. That's better. Okay, I hate this bit now. It is not good. So we need a sort of bluer mix down here. I think a bit of titanium white in there. Is that, that's a bit too white, isn't it? Colour matching, very good for you. And I don't care who you are, it's astonishingly difficult to do. But let's get that scumbled in with some of that bird colour too. So you can see this kind of rough, ready, much more painterly is a word that gets bandied about quite a lot, style of work where we're looking for textures, we're looking for brush marks, we're after an impression of things, all of that kind of stuff. So Let's do a little bit more work to the legs and to the feet with these talons. Now, of course, the million-dollar question is going to be, how much detail am I going to paint those in? And the answer is hopefully not too much. We need to get some of that light colour back in to smudge away some of those areas. In fact, we need a bit of white and buff titanium. I'm thinking, yes, that's better. I need to make... Oh, I've covered over my letters. Look at that. Did I want to do that? Hey, that is how a painting sometimes progresses. And do you know what? If I need to put the lettering back in, I'll just put the lettering back in. What else do we want? No, you see, I want to expose a little bit of that mirror tile. Can't resist it. What else we got? We got that. I don't want to miss the boat for being able to blend some of this out. So I need to make a sort of, what is that colour? Like a kind of lilac-y, peachy, orangey thing. That's technical, isn't it? Let's see. No, that's not it, Ali. Okay, I quite like it. Quite like what I've mixed. Let's get that in and chip away at some of that colour. That's better. I think I made him have a bit too low an undercarriage, which none of us need, do we? I certainly don't. Let's get some of that smudged in. Now I'm going to take a bit of water to this. A little bit of water to it. So I'm going to clean my brush out first. Let's move that pad over. Oh, thanks, Anita. That's very kind of you. Anita, of course, SAA's in-house artist, very, very talented lady. And when Anita's telling you that she likes your painting, then you want to be listening, don't you? So let's get this smudged in. And let's get a little bit of water so that I'm kind of channeling my watercolour techniques here, really. Fuzzing out the edges, vignetting some of it into that background. This is a bit too strong as well in here, but we can worry about that later. And there are some marks in here that I'm not wild about, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Good morning, Pen. Just in case you have joined us or you are joining halfway through, I'm broadcasting across several social media platforms today to encourage you to join my Learning to Paint community. So I have a website called www.learningtopaint.co.uk where you will find things out about the tuition that I offer and some of the membership schemes that I run, like the All Aboard Artists. But I also run a page, and you might be watching me on it right now, called Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard. I know that they're a very similar title, but the idea of that is that it's a community run much more by lovely people like yourselves, where you share techniques, and if you're having a bad day, you've got somebody there who will sympathise, all of those types of things. So if you would like to join that, put it into the search bar, into Facebook, just put Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard. You've got a couple of questions that you need to answer, simply because we want to make sure that you're genuine. We have a lovely volunteer admin team. I don't pay them, sadly. They wish I did, but I don't pay them. They are there very much because of their love of community and art. We've got Dee and we've got Kath. So between us, we just like to make sure that you're absolutely a genuine painter. So there's a couple of questions to answer. If you don't answer the questions, sadly, I'm afraid you don't get in, which is good as well if you are a member, because we keep the riffraff out. And you can be part of that fabulous group. And I know I'm massively biased, but it is a fabulous group because everybody looks after each other. They give you lots of encouragement if you're having a bad painting day. It can be something going on in your personal life, in your private life, and you're just not feeling terribly creative. All the lovely fellas. We're about 40 people off 2,000 people in the Learning to Paint community. And those 2,000 people will give you a lovely, warm, virtual hug if you are having a bad day. I can guarantee it. I'll give you more information. I'll give you a reminder about where to find the blog so that you can catch up on this. later towards the end of the demonstration. Now, what am I doing now? I was yakking. What I'm doing now is I'm doing a little bit of scumbling over the top of the texture. Let's zoom in on the overhead camera so that you can see exactly what's happening on my surface. Look at that. All of those textures that I had laid down, I'm now using to effect by scumbling, using a kind of an almost dry brush. Thank you, Mary. Over the top to get that kind of sense of lost and found. Some of the bird colour is being picked up into the rest of it. I need to do some work up here. Oh, that's off camera, Ali. I need to do some work up here too to get a bit of a sense going on. But you can see how much work is actually required. And Anne B has made a very good point. While watching this, I keep getting the song Starlings in my mind. Now, I'm very much hoping that she is referring to the Elbow song called Starlings. And yes, that's what I was talking about right at the start of this project. Following that fabulous band around, they use lots of motifs, and birds is one of them. It crops up all the time, and he uses it as a metaphor for old age and for love and for changing times in transitioning from kind of one generation to another. And Anne said that she is referencing the Elbow song, so that's all good, isn't it? Right, now we're getting somewhere, aren't we? But always very easy to overdo it at this stage. So what I'm actually going to do now, after one last little fudge down here, I just want to get rid of that grey line a little bit. Let's paint, and that bee is starting to come out. Look at that, how exciting is that? I want to just kind of blend the feet in a little bit more. So I can always add some more to this, but it's getting that kind of nice fuzzy look. Nice area of light. Bit too big, I think, at the moment, that area of light. So I'm going to start to push some of this back as well, which is a very dramatic thing to do. Oh, Ruth, congratulations. Ruth has just said that her grandson passed his driving test this morning, and there's a fabulous example of why the Learning to Paint community is so awesome, because we can celebrate each person's successes. And it's nice on mornings when you're having a bit of a bad day. It's nice to go and hear about what's happening to other people. Now that's better, isn't it? That's much better. Beak do being fuzzier, but blah, blah, blah. We won't worry about that. What I am going to do now is I'm going to do a little bit of detail on the eye. So let's get that close-up camera involved. Let's set that one up so that you can see the eye. Let's get that turned around. Now the colours aren't great on the close-up camera. All I want to do at the moment is to get it blocked in so that he looks slightly less possessed, I think is the answer. Doopy-doopy-doo. So let's get, so this is my SAA oil and acrylic round brush. This is the size 0. And as you can see, much finer. I'm able to do much more detail. I have a feeling I'm going to finish things like this off in a different way, but for the time being, I need to get it blocked in. So we need to lose that corner a little bit more. Don't stick your finger in wet paint, Ali. Let's get this neatened and tidied up. Now he looks sad because I've put in a brush stroke. That's better. Now he looks a bit more interesting. Probably need to work on the shape of that eye at some point, and I have a feeling that that highlight is a bit too stark as well. But for the time being, that will do. Loads of stuff needs doing. He needs much more definition around here, around the beak. We need to accentuate some of those feathers around the beak, etc. But for the time being, he is as blocked in as I would like him to be. And he has the qualities that I wanted. I didn't want him to be this kind of taxidermy, stuck on, kind of flat looking bird. I wanted him to be part of everything, okay? I wanted him to be part of the background, which incidentally is, I think, the last pass I'm going to do on this today. I noticed when I was doing the eye that I haven't got much of the lilac-y velvet purple involved in him, and that is very necessary to make sure that he is part and parcel of that background. So I'm going to scumble a little bit of that colour in over the top, and then when I come back to it next week, I'll be able to see much more clearly what needs pulling out and what needs pushing back. See, that looks better already. One addition of colour, isn't that incredible? And all of a sudden it has a different look. What I am going to do is get rid of that horrible mark that's there. Don't like that, so we'll get rid of it. The joy that is acrylic painting. Okay, now let's get him out of the shine as well, because he's kind of very glossy looking. There he is. Much easier to see when you can get the shine off it. I've got that little bit of mirror tile kind of chinking in up there, and I have got, look at that little bit of mirror tile in there. And I think his tail will, let's just do that actually. I think his tail will need eventually painting over the top. Oh, that's not going to work, Ali, is it? You need much thicker paint than that. Let's just put a line of colour in to break up the mirror tile down there. Now stop fussing, Ali. Stop it. Step away. Step away. Right, I'm going to stop. Stop. But what this does is push this painting on really quite dramatically further. Thank you, Shani. That's very kind of you to say that he's gorgeous. And people now are glad that I kind of uncovered that little bit of tile down there. Yeah, I just want this kind of chink of light, this reference to the mirror ball. You've got that little bit of bee coming in down here. You've got another little bit up here. All of those textures that I laid down right at the start now absolutely playing their part. Now don't disappear on me, lovely people. I want to be able to show you where you can go to be able to catch up on this. So stick with me just for a second. You need to go over to my website, and that's not the website, Ali, that is the Facebook page. Here's the website. So here we've got it. You can see learningtopaint.co.uk. Where do you find it? You find it under free resources. There's all sorts of other bits of information. You can spend a very happy hour going through my website and treating yourself to all sorts of things. There is Technique Tuesday. So you click on Technique Tuesday. Now yours might look a little bit different to this because it depends on whether you're watching on a phone or a tablet or a desktop. But here we have today's part. Look, there they all are. Here we all are. If you want to do the catch-up thing, there's that found poem rach, a concert of birds bow and sing, and you can watch how I got to that point. So they're in reverse chronological order. Now here is today's, which if you're watching this live is very odd because how can that possibly be, because we're recording it right now, but it gives you some insight into why I used that bird. There's a little elbow quote there too. I give you the link to the photograph, and if you keep on scrolling down, that's where the video will be if you want to watch it on catch up. But here are the links: the Tear Off palette, the SAA oil and acrylic brushes, the System 3 acrylic paints, and the Slow Drying Medium 2. So just to remind you, you go to learningtopaint.co.uk and you go to the free resources part of it. Click on to Technique Tuesday, and that brings you to the blog. So let's get you all back where I can see you. Now, lots of very, very lovely comments. Thank you. That's really kind. Ali, who else have we got? Oh, too many coming in. Pam, Rachel, thank you. Martina, you're all being very kind. Pippa too. Marion, thank you. Sally says she's been multitasking, but has been interested to see him emerging on the paper. and and lots of people liking that combination of techniques. So no matter where you're watching today, whether you're watching on my Facebook pages or whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're watching via the website, I'm giving you the warmest of invitations. Pop over to Facebook, put in the search bar Learning to Paint with Alison Seaboard, that would be me, and you can be part of that group. It doesn't matter whether you paint or don't paint. If you are a creative person, we get people share abstracts, we get people share their crafts, their card making, their paintings. It doesn't matter whether you are a raw beginner or a seasoned professional, you will always be very welcome. Now, I am going to be back next week with a very quick live broadcast next week, just because I've got a rather full diary next week. But we're going to push this bird portrait on a little bit further and you'll get to see it emerge even more. Don't forget that if you have any questions at all, tag me in something or tag our lovely admins, Kath and Dee, or you're very welcome to email me, ali@learningtopaint.co.uk. Thank you very much for taking the time and trouble to tune in this morning. It's always lovely to see you. I hope you are enjoying this project. I'm really excited by it. It's one of the most exciting projects that I have done pretty much for the last 12 months. So I can't wait to see it finished. So until I see you next time, whether virtually or in person, take lots of care of yourselves, won't you? And we'll catch up very, very soon. Bye, everybody.